Yesterday we went with some of the different classes of your exception handling mechanism or classes of Java exceptions. There are arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, class not found exception, then moving with the file not found exception, IO exception, and interrupted exception, no such field or a method exception, null pointer exception, then number format exception, runtime exception, and string index out of bonds exception. So many are there. For your purpose I have written with some of them. Stack overflow is there. File format is not correct, like that. Different types of exceptions will be there where a program at the time of execution, if it enters into the abnormal problem, then we can call that one as an exception. Already you are knowing such all the cases we can call them as exceptions that can be handled by defining with these different types of classes to come out from that particular problem. We are going to use with these simple different types of exceptions. So you have seen the examples on arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, then string index out of bounds exception, file not found exception, and number format exception, and lastly we had been completed with array index out of bounds exception. So today we'll be going with another new concept of your exception, that is finally block. What is actually meant by finally block and what it is going to do for you. Okay, as already said, when a program statement enters into the try block, if there is an exception is checked and caught, then after checking and catching the exception, if there are different types of statements within a try block, those all the things will not be executed, because your control will pass directly from try to the catch block. So at that position we can't execute your some of the statements. To avoid this problem, we can define with what? Finally block. Finally block, what it is going to do? It executes different statements which are to be executed after all try and catch blocks are executed. Okay. At that position you are going to use here. Just see what he is going to say here. In a simple flowchart he is going to show here. Program code, exception occurred. Exception will be occurring in the form of what? Try, if it is going to handle it. If exception is there, it will be sent to the catch. Catch will execute and goes to the finally block. This is one way of executing. If try has been found an error, and if it has been sent that an error thrown to the exception catch, and a catch after, then you can execute with finally block. Okay, then if there is exception the catch will not going to handle it, then ultimately you can go for finally statement. That is also possible. If exception is not found, there is no any problem, then ultimately it is going to go for finally block. So what you can understand from this one, if any sort of statements will be there within your programming within a Java, at that position we can execute a set of statements without having any problem, without having any what problems. Okay, so we'll be having a simple statement here. Java finally block is a block that is used to execute important code such as closing connection streams, etc. Java finally block is always executed whether exception is handled or not, and it is followed by your try and catch statement. Compulsory there should be a try and catch statement, then we can define with finally block. He is going to explain with a simple example here. Class test finally block, public static void main, then try int data is equal to 25 divided by 5. So we're going to get answer as 5, and it is going to display here. there is no such a, there is no any such a problem you are going to have here. Is it right or not? Int data is equal to 25 divided by 5 means it is going to define with 5 as a value, and it is going to display for you finally. When there is no any problem means this particular statement will not going to be executed. Catch statement will not going to execute. Hence finally block, what it is going to do, it has been entered into the finally block, rest the code is executed. So you're going to have the output here. You're checking 5, sorry, there is a 5, finally block is always executed, and rest of the code. So it executes with the statement system.out.println 5 is displayed. It is not going to enter into the catch block. After then finally it is going to state the statements as finally block is always executed, system.out.println normal statements. Why he has been written this one? Because once when the program statements enter into the try, if it enters to the catch, whether these two statements will be executed or not, for that particular sake they have been went for it. If you wanted to see that one also, there is a case int data is equal to null, you write null, then you utilize that one and see it enters into the null pointer assignment. It enters into the null pointer assignment, then proceeds with null pointer assignment, and it gives an error or exception. Then it moves to the statement here. Because of that particular purpose only finally is used. If any n number of statements to be executed which are suppressed by defining with the try and catch statements, at that position you are going to define with these statements. So this is how we are going to use the null pointer assignment. Okay, null pointer as an exception as well as finally block. So what you can understand from this particular statement here, finally block is a block which is used to redefine your important statements which are being not executed at the try and catch block, can be executed by defining with your finally statements. So this is what another important part of your Java programming language. Okay, in an exception, a simple example you are going to have here. We shall check with this one what it is the problem you are going to get here. So what is the problem you are going to get here? Int data is equal to 25 divided by 0. So 25 divided by 0 is divided by 0, you are going to get a arithmetic exception. Is it right or not? So try will send to the catch, but here you are not defined with arithmetic exception, but you have written here with what? Null pointer exception. So you are going to get a runtime error for that one. You will be getting with what? A runtime error for that one. Error will be displayed as what? It will be displaying a exception in thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception, which is not defined. What is the error you are going to have? Divided by 0 at the test finally block 1 dot main. So what is that? Test finally block 1 dot main. Within the main you got an error where catch is not defined with the what? Null pointer exception. So for that sake it is going to display with an runtime assignment. Then after all entering into that one, finally block has been executed with finally block is always executed. So when an exception occurs, when a catch is not handled, at that time also you can execute with what? A finally block. So exception has been handled, it has been sent to the court. Catch statement, catch, what it is doing here, it is null pointer exception is there. So this particular exception is not defined for your divide by 0 information. So at that time it is going to display with the runtime problem. Then afterwards you are going to execute with the rest other things which are present within the finally block. Okay, only finally block is displayed, not your system.out.println, because it is a part of your main program. Main program already it has been decided as an error has been occurred, an exception has been occurred which is not resolved. So for that sake other things are not executed, only finally statement is executed. Okay, another one case is to execute those all the statements we can have here. So once again, int data is equal to 25 divided by 0 system dot out dot println of data. So you're going to get an error here. Data value will be sent to what? E arithmetic exception. So there is no any problem. It is going to handle, and it is going to display with what? It is going to display with java lang dot arithmetic exception divided by 0. So try has been thrown the exception to the catch block, and catch block is going to be executed, and then afterwards you are going to execute with the rest other things. Finally block is going to execute. In the previous example you are not executed with this one because at the program side itself it was a problem, so this particular statement was not executed. When try and catch blocks are executed very incorrectly, at that position you want to execute with these all the statements. Either there is a problem or not, finally will be executed. But when there is a problem within a catch which is not being caught at the correct position, correct way, then other statements, rest of finally will not going to be executed. But here we are going to have a rest of code because you have been executed with that statement also. So there is no any problem. Okay, so I'll be stopping here itself. Rest other things we shall discuss tomorrow.